The machine chirped, and then it spit out the word I never forget. Declined, with a little receipt like a slap. The cashier tried again, and the line behind me started doing that irritated shuffling thing because apparently a 64-year-old woman with groceries is an inconvenience now. When I called Chase from the parking lot, the agent said my online access had been modified and only the primary holder could change it, Brandon. My stomach didn't drop. It tightened, like someone cinched a belt around my ribs and yanked. 2 weeks earlier, back in that grocery line, before I knew my own kid had turned me into a beggar. Declined, twice, in front of everyone. Only the primary holder, my own son. I'm telling you, I can still hear the sound of that terminal, that dry little beep like it was scolding me. I had a cart with actual food in it, not some fancy stuff. Eggs, bread, chicken I planned to stretch into 3 meals, my heartburn meds, that one brand of oatmeal I can actually stomach. And the total wasn't even wild. It was $143.20. I remember because I glanced at the screen and did that mental math we all do. Okay, that's fine. My deposit hit. We're good. The cashier was a young guy with a nose ring and the patient face of someone trying not to get yelled at. He ran it once. Sometimes the chip messes up, he said, like he was doing me a favor. He ran it again. Same buzz, same little paper, same word. And the lady behind me, she didn't even whisper it. She said it out loud. Maybe you should move aside if you don't have the money. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to crawl into the freezer with the frozen peas and just shut the door. So I did what proud people do when they're panicking. I smiled like it was fine. I told the cashier, oh, must be a glitch, and I grabbed my purse and I pushed the cart forward like I was going to fix it and come back. I didn't come back. I abandoned that cart right there like it belonged to somebody else, like it wasn't my dinner plan, like it wasn't my whole week. I walked out into the Phoenix sun and the heat hit my face. And for a second I thought, okay, maybe Chase is down, maybe it's a fraud alert, maybe... No, listen, the truth is my brain offered me excuses because the real explanation was too ugly. I sat in my Camry, my old faithful Camry with the cracked cup holder, and I called the number on the back of the card. I held the phone up like it was going to bite me. The automated voice asked for the last 4 digits. I punched them in with a thumb that wouldn't stop shaking. Hold music. Then a woman picked up, calm, cheerful, like I was calling to ask about my rewards points. I told her my card was being declined. She asked me to verify my identity. Then she asked a question that made my skin go cold. Are you the primary account holder? I said, it's my account. My pension goes in there. And she paused, just long enough for me to hear the smile leave her voice. Ma'am, the primary holder is Brandon Calder. He's the only one authorized to make changes to access. That's when I knew it wasn't a glitch. He did it on purpose. He wanted me begging. I pulled away from the curb because I couldn't stand sitting in that parking lot like a stranded kid. I drove with my hands at 10 and 2 like I was back in driver's ed. I kept thinking, call him right now, fix it. Then I pictured what that call would look like. Me trying to keep my voice steady, pretending I wasn't embarrassed, pretending I wasn't scared, him letting me sweat for a second before he acted helpful, maybe even laughing like I was being dramatic. And then Tessa, because Tessa always had to be part of it. She'd be right there on speaker. I could hear it already. Well, Denise, we've been trying to tell you. This is for your own good. I pulled into my apartment complex and parked crooked because my brain was running too fast for parking lines. Inside, I dropped my purse on the kitchen chair and went straight to my phone like it had answers in it. I opened the Chase app. My password didn't work. I tried again. Nope. I hit forgot password. The security email didn't come to me. It went to a number I didn't recognize. Done. Locked out. So I called Chase back and made the poor woman repeat it like I was hard of hearing. Yes, ma'am. Access was modified. When? I can't disclose that without the primary holder. Who did it? Ma'am, only the primary holder can do that. That was the moment where it stopped being a money problem and became something else. It became personal. Because I wasn't calling about a stolen card. I was calling about my own child, quietly taking the key off my keyring while I slept. I stood at my kitchen counter staring at the little bowl where one tossed my keys every day, like the answer might be in there. And here's the controversial part. Here's the part where people will judge me. My finger hovered over Brandon's name in my contacts, and I didn't call. I didn't beg. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Comment below, be honest. Would you have called your own kid right then, or would you have stayed silent out of pure pride? Because I stayed silent. And it almost cost me. I told myself I'd wait 1 hour, that's all. Maybe he'd notice. Maybe he'd call. Maybe this was some oops thing. No call. I waited another hour. Nothing. So I did the thing you do when you're trying not to cry. I got busy. I checked my pantry like I was planning for a hurricane. 1 box of pasta, half a bag of rice, 2 cans of beans, a jar of peanut butter that was down to the sticky bottom, and my meds, heartburn pills, blood pressure pills, sitting on the counter like little reminders that I'm not 25 anymore. I opened my wallet and counted. $22. Not enough for groceries, not enough for prescriptions, not enough for dignity, if I'm being honest. And that's when the anger started, slow and hot. Because this wasn't Brandon helping me. This was Brandon deciding I should feel fear. I leaned against the fridge and I laughed like a bitter little bark because I remembered the day he pitched this whole setup to me. "Mom, it'll be easier," he'd said. "I can manage it. You won't have to worry." And I'd believed him because that's what moms do. We believe our kids even when the evidence is right there that they're grown adults with their own priorities. Wait, I forgot to mention something that matters. This wasn't some brand new account. My pension deposits hit every month, like clockwork, about $1, $200. That's my money, my life, my groceries, my co-pays. But Brandon, he'd been acting like he was the one keeping me afloat, telling family, "I helped Mom out, she's okay," like he deserved a medal. Meanwhile, I'm staring at $22 like it's a lottery ticket. And that night, when the apartment got quiet, the memories came in like a swarm. My last birthday, 63, no call, no text, nothing. Then I saw the photos online, Brandon and Tessa at some restaurant, clinking glasses, captioned, "Living our best life." He posted it like I didn't exist. Publicly forgotten, privately used. And don't even get me started on the time I got sick, fever, chills, that shaky weakness where you can't even stand at the sink without holding on. I called him then. I asked him to just come by, even for 15 minutes. He told me, "Busy, Mom, drink tea." That was it. No visit, no groceries dropped off. No "you okay" the next day. Rosa did more for me in 48 hours than my own son did all week. She brought soup. She grabbed my prescription. She knocked every morning like a metronome, making sure I was still breathing. So yeah, lying in my bed that night after the decline at the store, I wasn't shocked out of nowhere. This was a pattern. The bank account was just the boldest version of it. And then my brain went to this one moment that still makes my cheeks burn. A few months back, I tried to stop by their house. I had picked up this little cake from the grocery store bakery, nothing fancy, just something sweet, because I thought, I'll be nice. I'll show up like family. I'll keep trying. Tessa opened the door, didn't step aside, didn't invite me in, just stood there holding the door like a bouncer. And she smiled, this tight, polite smile, and said, "Not a good time." Brandon was behind her in the living room. He glanced over like I was a delivery guy. Then he looked away. I stood on their porch holding a cake like an idiot. And I went home and told myself it didn't mean anything. That's the part one hate admitting. I covered for them in my own head. So when I say I didn't sleep that night, I mean I did that old person insomnia where your body is exhausted, but your mind refuses to shut up. I got up twice to pee. I drank water. I stared at the ceiling fan. I listened to the refrigerator hum like it was mocking me. And somewhere around 3 a.m., it clicked into place in a way that made me sit straight up. He didn't lock me out by accident. He locked me out to control me. because if he helped me, then he could also punish me. I got out of bed and went to the little drawer where I keep photos. You know the drawer, everyone has one. The messy drawer with rubber bands and old envelopes and pictures that don't fit anywhere else. I pulled out a photo of Brandon when he was 5, missing a front tooth, holding a little plastic baseball bat like he was the king of the world. And I cried. Not pretty crying, the kind where your face gets wet and you don't even wipe it because what's the point? Then I stopped. Cold. Quiet. Because something in me got tired of pleading with a ghost. I washed my face at the sink and stared at myself in the mirror. Red eyes. Puffy cheeks. A woman who'd been too patient for too long. And I said out loud, "Okay, fine, starve me." That sounds dramatic, I know, but it's what it felt like. Like the message was clear, do what I want or suffer. So I got dressed. Not fancy, just decent. Jeans, clean shirt, hair pulled back. Like if I looked put together, I could pretend my life wasn't falling apart. I considered going back to the store with cash, but what cash? $22 doesn't buy you groceries in 2025. It buys you maybe a bag of apples and regret. I stood by my door with my keys in my hand, and I thought about all the people in my life. And the list was short. Rosa Martinez lived 2 doors down. She was the kind of neighbor who notices everything without being nosy about it. The kind who'll say, "You okay, Mija?" Even though we're basically the same age. That woman has a heart like a porch light, always on. But I didn't want to go to Rosa. Pride is a stupid drug. I paced my tiny living room, I picked up my phone, I put it down, I opened the Chase app again like it might suddenly apologize. Nothing. So I walked. Phoenix in March is that tricky weather where the sun lies to you. It feels pleasant until you're halfway down the sidewalk and you realize you're sweating. I got to Rosa's door and my stomach did this flip like I was about to confess to a crime. My hand hovered over the doorbell, and I almost turned around. Then I thought about my meds on the counter, I thought about my pantry, I thought about that cashier's face, and I rang the bell. Rosa opened the door and took one look at me, and her whole expression changed. "Denise, what's wrong?" And I tried to do the polite version first. "Oh, nothing, I just..." She cut me off. "No, sit, tell me." So I sat at her kitchen table, and the smell of coffee hit me, and I swear my throat tightened just from being in a room that felt warm. I told her the whole thing, the decline, the bank call, the app login, Brandon being the primary holder. Rosa didn't gasp. She didn't do the fake shocked face. She got mad. "Your son did this?" she said, like she was saying a curse word. I nodded, and the tears came again, because saying it out loud makes it real. Rosa stood up, opened a drawer, and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table like she was sliding me a weapon. $150, she said. "Cash, take it." I tried to push it back. "Rosa, I can't." She leaned forward and pointed at me like I was her kid. "Listen to me. Accepting help isn't weakness, it's intelligence." That line hit me like a slap, too, because she was right. I took the envelope with hands that felt too old for this kind of humiliation. And then Rosa did something that made my chest ache in a different way. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Eat today," she said. "We deal with the rest after." I nodded like I could be normal, like my son didn't just cut my legs out from under me. But the second I stepped outside with that envelope in my purse, the anger came back. Because yes, Rosa saved me in that moment. But Brandon put me there. He made me go asking. He made me small. And I hated him for it. I drove back to the same grocery store because I'm stubborn like that. I wanted to rewrite the scene. I wanted to walk in with my head up and prove to myself I still belonged in public. I grabbed a basket instead of a cart because $150 doesn't stretch as far as you'd like. I kept it simple. Bread, eggs, peanut butter, a bag of rice, some canned soup, bananas, and my meds from the pharmacy counter. I watched every price like it was a threat. At checkout, I paid in cash. No beep, no decline, no shame. but it wasn't a victory the way people think. Because I walked to my car holding those plastic bags, and all I could think was, I'm buying my own groceries with my neighbor's money because my son decided I needed to suffer. I went home and put everything away slowly, like if I moved carefully enough, I wouldn't break apart again. Then I sat at my kitchen table with my phone and stared at Brandon's name. Still no call from him. Not even a text. That's the part that chilled me. Because if he'd done this for my own good, wouldn't he check on me? Wouldn't he say, hey, Mom, I updated the account, don't freak out? But he didn't want calm. He wanted pressure. He wanted me to crack. So I made a decision right there at that table, with my groceries put away and my meds in the cabinet. I wasn't calling him. Not today. Not tomorrow. If he wanted to talk, he could come to me. And that's when the apartment got quiet again. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own thoughts too clearly. I kept my routine for the next few days like it was a life raft. Wake up, coffee, little breakfast, watch the local news, sweep the floor, keep moving so I wouldn't spiral. And every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped like an idiot. It was never Brandon. It was a pharmacy reminder, a spam call, Rosa texting, you ate today? I told myself I was fine. I told myself the $150 would stretch. I told myself I didn't care. Lies. All of it. On the fourth night, I sat on my couch with the TV on low, not really watching, just listening so I didn't feel alone. I looked around my little apartment, my old armchair, my chipped coffee mug, the photo of Brandon and baby Lily on the shelf, and I felt something sharp in my chest. Not sadness. Not even fear. Resolve. Because this wasn't just about money, it was about access, it was about respect. It was about whether my own child was allowed to treat me like a problem to manage. And right when I was thinking that, right when I was finally steady, there was a knock at my door. Not a polite tap. A real knock, firm. Like whoever it was expected an answer. My whole body went still. I wasn't expecting Rosa. She would have texted. I wasn't expecting Brandon either, because Brandon never shows up when it matters. The knock came again. And then a third time, slower, patient. Like the person on the other side knew I was there and wasn't leaving. I stood up, my heart punching my ribs, and I walked to the door. I put my hand on the knob, and I swear to you, in that tiny second before I opened it, I thought, this is where my life splits. Black screen. And the next part is where the receipts start showing up, with a stranger at my doorstep and my son's control finally slipping. The second I cracked the door open, I knew he wasn't Brandon. This man stood there like he'd been waiting his whole life to show up at the exact wrong time. Mid-50s, broad shoulders, sun-brown skin, work boots, and a button-down that looked freshly washed but still a little wrinkled. His hands were empty. That's what made it worse. No flowers, no sorry to bother you, just presence. He looked right at me and said my name like he was making sure it was still mine. Denise Calder? I kept the chain on. Who are you? He swallowed, and I saw nerves flicker in his eyes. Marcus Reed. That name landed in my chest. Not soft, not gentle, like a coin dropped into a metal cup. I hadn't seen Marcus in years. Years. The last time, he was thinner, jittery, and running on pride and bad decisions. I'd let him sleep on my couch when he had nowhere else to go. I'd fed him. I'd driven him to a job interview. And when he finally got steady, he'd left me a thank you note on a napkin like he didn't deserve real paper. Now he was standing on my doorstep in North Phoenix like the past had a key. I didn't move, I didn't invite him in. I just stared, trying to decide if I was hallucinating. He held both palms up, slow. I'm not here to scare you. Well, you're doing a great job, I said. His mouth twitched like he almost smiled, then thought better of it. Fair. A beat of silence, then he glanced down the hallway like he expected someone to appear behind him. Can I talk to you for a minute, just privately? I tightened my grip on the chain. Why are you here? He exhaled hard through his nose. Because I heard what your son did. That sentence snapped my head up so fast my neck popped. My son, I repeated, low. Marcus nodded once. And before you ask how I know, I didn't get it from him. I didn't like that at all. I leaned into the crack of the door. You better start making sense. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not a weapon, not a badge, a paper. He held it up like a peace offering. I'm not handing you anything through a chain, I said. Okay, he said quickly. Okay, I get it. I brought something I thought you should see. I stared at his hands again. Steady, clean nails, no twitch. My heart was still punching around in there, but something else started creeping in. Curiosity, anger's little sidekick. I slid the chain off, opened the door wider, and kept my body planted in the doorway like a door frame was going to save me. Talk, I said. Marcus didn't step inside. That mattered. He stayed in the hallway, respectful like he was in church. He said I ran into Rosa. My stomach tightened. Rosa Martinez? He nodded. Yeah, she told me you weren't doing so great. Of course she did. Rosa can't keep anything in without it turning into a rescue mission. Marcus kept going, careful. She didn't tell me everything, just that you got locked out of your Chase account and you looked shaken. I felt heat creep up my neck. That's none of your business. I know, he said, and I'm not here to gossip. I'm here because I owe you. And because what he did isn't just mean, it's a thing. There's a name for it. I gave him a look that said, don't try to educate me right now. He took it anyway. Financial abuse. That word sat in the air between us. Heavy. I didn't answer. Marcus lowered his voice. Denise, you helped me when you didn't have to. You treated me like a person when I was acting like one of those shopping carts with a busted wheel. I never forgot it. I stayed quiet because if I opened my mouth, I might cry or scream. Either one would feel too intimate in a hallway. He lifted the folded paper again. This is just a screenshot printout. Rosa didn't want to text it to you in case your son checks your phone plan or something. She's smart. Rosa. Always thinking 6 moves ahead. Marcus said, Can I come in? I won't move until you say so. I hesitated, then stepped back. Shoes off. He blinked, then nodded like he expected rules. He toed off his boots at the threshold and stepped in slowly, like my apartment was a wild animal. The second the door shut, my nerves spiked again. I hated that my body did that. I hated that trust had become work. We stood there in my living room, with the TV still on low, a late-night commercial selling miracle cookware. Marcus looked around, and his face changed. Not judgment, recognition, like he remembered the shape of my life. You still have that armchair, he said softly. Don't get sentimental, I snapped, because I could feel my throat tightening. He nodded once. Okay, no sentimental. I motioned at the kitchen table. Sit, and tell me why you're really here. He sat. I stayed standing. I needed the height. Marcus unfolded the paper, smoothed it on the table, and turned it toward me. It was a printout of a text thread. The kind you get when someone doesn't trust screenshots to stay on a phone. Across the top, in bold, was a contact name, Tessa Calder. My stomach rolled. Marcus tapped one line with his finger, then slid the paper closer. I read it. Tessa, if she starts calling, don't answer. She'll cave. Brandon, she always does. Tessa, good. Keep her locked out until she agrees to move in or sign the POA. Brandon, Mom won't sign. Tessa, then she doesn't eat. Simple. My hands went cold so fast, it felt like someone dumped ice water over my wrists. I stared at the words until they blurred. Marcus didn't speak. He let the paper do its job. I looked up at him, voice barely there. Where did you get this? He swallowed. Rosa has a niece. Works at that nail salon over by the Target on Bell Road. Tessa was in there talking loud like she was the star of her own show. The niece typed it out from memory right after, and Rosa had her send it to me to print. I blinked, stuck on one detail. From memory? Marcus nodded. She's one of those people who remembers everything, the kind you don't want mad at you. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt exposed. Because now there were strangers out there, people in salons and parking lots, watching my family's mess like it was entertainment. I picked up the paper and my fingers shook. This could be made up. Marcus didn't get offended. You're right, it could be. That's why I'm not telling you to take it to the police tomorrow. I'm telling you it matches what you already know in your bones. I stared down at the line again. Then she doesn't eat. Simple. That was my daughter-in-law talking about me like I was a raccoon in the trash. I pressed the paper flat with my palm like I could pin the ugliness down. Marcus leaned forward, voice calm. Denise, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me help you get real records, bank records, paper you can hold. I laughed once, sharp. You think Chase is going to hand me anything when they already told me I'm not the primary holder? Not Chase, he said. A lawyer. My eyes narrowed. I can't afford a lawyer. Marcus didn't flinch. I can. The room went still. I hated the way my pride immediately rose up like a guard dog. No. He didn't argue. He just said, hear me out. I crossed my arms. Talk. Marcus pulled another paper from his pocket, this one crisp, folded like it came out of an envelope. He slid it over. It was a business card stapled to a short note. Harold Klein, attorney at law, elder law/estate/protective orders. My mouth went dry. Marcus said I called him 2 days ago. Just asked questions. Didn't give names at first. He said if a family member is controlling an older adult's access to their own funds, there are legal avenues. He said the phrase, undue influence. He also said, we need documentation. I stared at the card like it might bite me too. I didn't ask you to do this, I said. I know, Marcus replied. I did it because I couldn't sleep after Rosa told me. That hit me in a strange place, because I hadn't slept either. And here was this man I once helped, this man I barely knew anymore, doing more than my own blood. I didn't like what that said about my life. I slid the card back. What's the catch? No catch, she said. I'm not moving in. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you to be my mom. I'm just balancing a scale. I shook my head. Life doesn't work like that. Marcus met my eyes. Sometimes it does. I looked away, because if I held his gaze too long, I'd start believing him. And believing things is how I got here. I set the text printout down again and forced my brain to work. Even if I talk to a lawyer, Brandon can still keep me locked out. Marcus nodded. For now. I frowned. What do you mean, for now? He tapped the attorney card. Harold said if you can show you're the source of those deposits, your pension, there are steps to regain control. Emergency steps depending on the situation. My heart thumped harder. Emergency steps? He nodded, careful. But we need proof. We need bank statements, deposit history, anything that ties those funds to you. I stared at my kitchen cabinets, like answers lived in there. I have old paper statements in a folder somewhere. Marcus's eyebrows lifted. That's a start. And I have my award letter, I said, thinking out loud. The one that shows my pension amount. Even better, he said. I let out a slow breath. My brain was shifting from panic to logistics, and I hated how familiar that felt. Like I was back raising a kid, solving problems on no sleep. I walked to the hall closet and pulled out a plastic bin, the one I keep labeled with masking tape that says, important. Inside were old tax returns, a few medical bills, and a thick envelope with my pension paperwork. I spread it on the table. Marcus stayed seated, hands folded, not touching anything. That restraint made me trust him a fraction more, which annoyed me. I found the letter that listed my monthly amount and my name in big, official font. Denise Calder, not Brandon, not Tessa, me. I slid it toward Marcus. This is mine. He nodded, like he'd never doubted it. Good. Then he reached into his pocket again and pulled out his phone, not to record me, not to show off. He typed something, then turned the screen toward me. It was an email draft addressed to Harold Klein. Subject line, urgent consult, financial control by family member. Marcus said, if you say yes, I'll send this tonight. If you say no, I walk out and you never see me again. That was oddly respectful, also weirdly intense. I stared at the screen, then at my own iPhone 12 sitting on the counter like a useless brick. My voice came out flat. Why are you doing this, Marcus? He didn't rush the answer. Because the last time I hit rock bottom, you didn't step over me, you didn't kick me, you didn't film it. You gave me soup and a blanket and you told me you can get up. He swallowed hard. I'm up now, and I'm not letting someone do to you what I used to do to myself. I looked down at the pension letter again. My name, my life. Then I looked at the text printout one more time. Then she doesn't eat. Simple. Something inside me cooled, like anger settling into a clean shape. I said, send the email. Marcus hit send. And just like that, the story shifted. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I flinched so hard it was embarrassing. It wasn't Brandon. It was Rosa. You okay? I saw someone at your door earlier. I stared at the message, then at Marcus. She's watching my hallway. Marcus gave a tiny shrug. Rosa watches the whole world. It's her superpower. I typed back, I'm okay, I'm not alone. Then I paused, thumb hovering. That felt too dramatic, too vulnerable. But it was true. I set the phone down and realized something else, something I hated even more. If Rosa was watching my hallway, Brandon could be too, in his own way. Not physically, maybe, but digitally. Phone plan, shared accounts. Things I'd let slide because I didn't want to look paranoid. Marcus must have seen my face change because he said, What? I kept my voice low. If Brandon controls the bank, what else does he control? Marcus didn't answer right away. He just watched me like he was waiting for me to connect my own dots. I stood up and walked into my bedroom, grabbed my phone, and opened my settings like I was suddenly a detective. I checked my Apple ID. And my stomach flipped. There was a device listed that wasn't mine. An iPad, logged in under my account. I stared at it, blinking fast. Marcus appeared in the doorway, not stepping in. What is it? I held the phone up. There's an iPad on my Apple ID. His jaw tightened. Do you own an iPad? No, I said, I don't. That was the first mini twist that really hurt, because it wasn't about money anymore. It was about access. About being watched. I scrolled. The iPad had a name. Lily's iPad. My granddaughter. My heart did this awful squeeze. Because I love Lily, I do. She's a sweet kid. She's not part of their scheme. She's just in their orbit. But the fact remained. My Apple ID was tied to a device in their home. Marcus's voice stayed calm. That means whoever set it up used your account. I felt my face go numb, so they can see my photos, my notes, maybe even my location. Marcus said quietly, and your emails, depending on how it's set. I sat on the edge of my bed like my legs forgot what to do. Then I heard myself say something that sounded like it came from someone else. I'm not safe in my own life. Marcus didn't rush in to comfort me. He just said we can lock it down. I looked up sharp. How? He held up his hands again. Not by doing anything shady. Just by changing your password, logging out unknown devices, and setting 2-factor to your phone number only. I stared at him, then at my iPhone 12. My phone number is mine, right? Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. Let's verify. We checked my phone plan online. The account holder name wasn't me. It was Brandon. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered. Of course. My voice went cold. He didn't just lock my bank. He locked my entire identity. Marcus nodded once. This is worse than a fight. This is control. I stood up again, pacing. So, what do I do? Get a new number? New email? New everything. Marcus said, we start with what you can control tonight. So I did it. I changed my Apple ID password. I logged out that iPad. I set my 2-factor to my phone. Then I remembered the phone plan. I paused. If he controls the phone plan, can he see my texts? Marcus didn't lie. Possibly. Depends on the carrier and settings. I swallowed hard. Then I can't talk to Harold Klein like this. Marcus nodded. We'll use my phone for the lawyer stuff, and we can get you a prepaid phone tomorrow if you want. A prepaid phone, like I was running from a stalker. Except the stalker was my son. I laughed once. Ugly. This is insane. Marcus's eyes stayed steady. No, this is strategy. That word, strategy, gave me something to hold on to. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was Brandon. A text. 2 words. Call me. My heart did that stupid jump again, but the fear was different now. Not fear of losing him, fear of what he'd say. Marcus saw the name pop up on my screen and his face tightened. You want to answer? I stared at the message. 2 words, like a command. No. Hey, Mom. No. Are you okay? No apology, just call me. I lifted my eyes to Marcus. He knows. Marcus asked softly, knows what? I held up the phone. He knows something changed. Maybe the Apple ID? Maybe he got logged out of that iPad? Maybe he just got tired of waiting for me to beg. Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking, don't call. My pride immediately agreed, but the rest of me panicked. If I don't? Marcus cut in, firm. If you call, he controls the conversation. If you don't, you control the silence. Control the silence. That hit me in the gut, because it was exactly what Brandon had been doing to me, using silence as a weapon. I stared at the text again. Then I typed back 1 sentence. Put it in writing. My thumb hovered. Then I hit send. A full minute passed. My phone stayed quiet. Then it buzzed again. Brandon, Mom, stop. You're being dramatic. My face went hot. I could hear his voice in my head, like he was standing right there, that same tone he used when he wanted to make me feel embarrassed for having feelings. I typed back, hands shaking. Restore my access to my Chase account. Marcus watched, quiet. Brandon didn't respond right away. When he did, it wasn't a yes. It was a threat dressed up as concern. Brandon, if you keep acting like this, Tessa and I will have to make decisions for you. I stared at that line until my vision tunneled. Make decisions for you. Like I was a toddler, like I was incompetent, like I was property. Marcus's voice was low and careful. Screenshot that. I froze. What? Screenshot it, Marcus repeated. That's a receipt. So I did. I took a screenshot of the text thread. I didn't even know my hands could move that fast. And right then, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Brandon, also don't drag other people into this. It won't end how you think. My stomach dropped. Other people. Rosa, Marcus, Harold Klein, whoever he suspected. My voice came out thin. He's warning me. Marcus's eyes were hard now. Good, let him. Warnings make great evidence. I didn't like how calm he was, but I also needed it, because my emotions were trying to drive the car straight into a wall. I stared at the screenshot in my camera roll like it was a lifeline. 3 short lines of text, and suddenly I wasn't just a mom with a family problem. I was a woman being managed. I said it out loud, tasting it like poison. He's trying to take my rights. Marcus nodded. That's why Harold matters. As if on cue, Marcus's phone pinged with an email notification. He picked it up, scanned it, then looked at me. I didn't think he'd respond this fast, he said. My heart thudded. Who? Harold Klein. Marcus turned the screen toward me. It was a short email. No fluff. Just a time and a place for a consult the next morning and a list of what to bring. ID, any pension documentation, any prior bank statements, and any texts showing coercion or threats. Marcus tapped the last line. He wrote, do not communicate by phone with the person controlling the account unless advised. Preserve all messages. I stared at the email like it was a door opening. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text from Brandon. But this one wasn't a text. It was a photo. A photo of an envelope addressed to me, my name written in Brandon's handwriting. Under it, his message. Legal notice. Don't ignore it. My throat tightened so hard I had to swallow twice. Marcus leaned forward. What is that? I stared at the photo, zooming in until the pixels broke apart. The return address line was visible enough to make out a name. Harold Klein's office. My blood went cold. How does he? I started, then stopped. Because the answer was obvious and disgusting. If Brandon controls my life, he's been watching my moves the whole time. I looked up at Marcus, voice shaking with a kind of rage I didn't recognize in myself. He's already there, I said. He's already trying to get ahead of us. Marcus's face went stone. Then we moved faster. My phone buzzed one more time. Brandon, I'm coming over. I stared at those words, and for the first time since the grocery store, I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt ready. I looked at Marcus and said, if Brandon steps into my apartment tomorrow acting like he owns me. My voice went quiet, deadly steady. He's gonna learn I'm not the one who's trapped. And that's where part 2 ends, because the next knock isn't a stranger. Marcus moved first, like he'd been waiting for the moment my son decided to turn this into a doorstep war. Don't open it alone, he said, already standing. Call Rosa. I hated how my hands listened to him before my pride could argue. I pulled up Rosa's number and hit call. She answered on the second ring. Denise? Brandon's coming over, I said. Now. There was a sharp inhale, then her voice dropped into that calm loud she does when she's trying not to scare you. Okay, I'm putting shoes on. Don't open the door until I'm there. Marcus is here, I added, like that would make it less weird. Rosa didn't even pause. Good, keep him there. I'll be there in 5. I hung up and my apartment suddenly felt smaller. The air got heavy. Even the TV sounded annoying, like the world had the nerve to keep selling frying pans while my life was being negotiated. Marcus glanced around my living room, eyes scanning like he was checking exits. Do you have a chain? Yeah, I said. And a peephole that's been scratched up since 2009. He nodded. Use both. My phone buzzed again. Brandon, open the door. That was it. No please, no are you okay, just a command. I stared at it, and my thumb hovered over the keyboard, itching to type something mean. Then I heard Harold Klein's email in my head. Preserve messages. Don't get pulled into a phone fight. So I didn't respond. Silence is only powerful when you're not afraid of it. My stomach still felt like a live animal, but my brain was clicking into a strange kind of focus. I took my iPhone and turned off preview notifications because I didn't want a text to pop up on my lock screen while Brandon was standing there. I didn't know what he could see anymore, and that unknown made me feel like I had ants under my skin. Marcus asked, Do you want to record? I hesitated. Is that legal? He shrugged. I'm not a lawyer, but you can at least write down what happens right after. Fair enough. I grabbed a notepad from my junk drawer, the one with grocery lists and old coupons, and put a pen on top of it like I was prepping for battle with office supplies. I didn't say it out loud, I saved it. The knock came hard, not like a son visiting, like a man collecting a debt. I looked through the peephole. Brandon stood there in a black polo and khaki pants like he'd come straight from an HOA meeting. His hair was done, clean shaven. He looked controlled, which, honestly, was worse than if he looked frantic. He knocked again, then leaned in close to the door like he could force his way through it with his voice. Mom, open up. I didn't move. Marcus stood behind me, not looming, just present, a witness, a weight in the room. The knock came again, and then Brandon's tone changed, softer, like he was performing for an audience. Mom, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. Out of hand. Like I'd started something. I unlatched the chain, then stopped myself and latched it again. My fingers were trembling. I hated that too. I opened the door just enough for the chain to catch. The hallway light cut across my living room floor. Brandon's eyes flicked past my face immediately, like he was checking for someone behind me. When he saw Marcus, his jaw tightened for half a second before he smoothed it out. Who's this? He asked, like Marcus was a bug on my shoulder. I kept my voice steady. A friend. Brandon's smile was thin. A friend, okay. He held up a large envelope. I brought you something. I didn't reach for it. Put it on the floor. His eyebrows lifted. Seriously? Yes, I said. Put it on the floor. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I was giving him instructions in my own apartment. Then, with a little theatrical sigh, he bent and set the envelope down by my doormat. I could see my name written in his handwriting, Denise Calder, big and blocky like he was labeling a file. Brandon straightened and looked at me again. Can I come in? No, I said. His eyes narrowed. Mom? No, I repeated. Talk from there. Marcus didn't say a word. That silence from him was its own kind of support. He wasn't trying to be my hero. He was just making it harder for Brandon to twist reality. Brandon's nostrils flared, then he tried a different approach. Concern. You've been acting off. I felt my body go hot. Off. Yeah, he said, nodding like he was being patient with a child. You're not thinking clearly. You're making emotional decisions. I looked him dead in the face. Restore my chase access. Brandon's expression flickered. Just a crack. Then he recovered. That's what this is about? I laughed once, sharp. That's a big part of it, yes. He leaned closer to the gap in the door, lowering his voice. Mom, I locked it down because you were getting scammed. I blinked. What scam? He gestured vaguely, like scams were just floating around me like gnats. People call older folks. You've gotten those calls. Everybody gets those calls, I snapped. Brandon's voice stayed calm, which made me want to throw something. Exactly, so I took precautions. By cutting me off, I said, at the grocery store. Brandon's eyes flicked away for a second, like he didn't want to picture it. Then he turned it into a weapon. If you were embarrassed, you should have called me. There it was. He wanted the call. He wanted the kneel. I didn't give it to him. Instead, I asked, where's my money going? Brandon's mouth tightened. Mom, you don't need to worry about that. That sentence did something to me. It didn't scare me. It clarified everything. I said softly, yes, I do. Brandon's face changed. A little irritation started leaking out. This is why we're trying to help you. You get worked up, you spiral, you, I cut in, are not my guardian. Brandon's cheeks flushed. Nobody said guardian. I held my phone up. You did, in your text. Brandon's eyes dropped to my phone like it was a weapon. You're screenshotting me now? Marcus finally spoke, calm as a rock. It's smart. Brandon's head snapped toward Marcus. This is none of your business. Marcus didn't flinch. When you lock someone out of their funds, it becomes everyone's business. Brandon laughed. One short, humorless sound. Oh, so you're a lawyer now? No, Marcus said. Just a man who knows what control looks like. That landed. I saw it. Brandon's eyes sharpened like he finally recognized Marcus as a threat. Brandon turned back to me, voice suddenly tight. Mom, you're letting strangers manipulate you. I didn't even get mad. I got clear. Marcus isn't the one who made me beg for groceries. Brandon's jaw clenched. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own phone. He held it up, screen facing me. Tessa's worried about you. I don't care, I said. He ignored that. Lily's been crying. And there it was. He brought my granddaughter into it like she was a shield. My chest ached, but I kept my voice even. Don't use Lily. Brandon's tone turned colder. I'm not using her. I'm telling you the impact of your behavior. My behavior. Like I was the problem. I said, if Lily's crying, it's because her parents are lying to her. Brandon's eyes flashed. Watch your mouth. The nerve. In my doorway. In my home. Brandon stared like he couldn't believe I said it. Then he changed tactics again. Legal. He pointed at the envelope on the floor. That's a notice. Read it. I will, I said, after you leave. He scoffed. Mom, stop. This isn't a game. I leaned closer to the crack in the door. Then stop playing. Brandon's face hardened. You want to do this the hard way? Fine. He turned slightly, like he was addressing an invisible judge in the hallway. If you're unable to manage your affairs, the court can appoint someone. My stomach went cold, but I didn't flinch. not outwardly. Marcus murmured behind me, "Don't react." Brandon watched my face, waiting for fear. When he didn't get it, he pushed harder. "You're living alone," he continued. "You're isolated. You're making accusations. That's exactly what they look for." They. I hated that they, like he had a team, like he'd already spoken to someone. I asked, "What court?" Brandon smiled, small and mean. "You'll see." I stared at him for a long second, then said, "Get off my property." His smile vanished. "It's an apartment complex." "Get away from my door," I corrected. Brandon's eyes flicked to Marcus again. "This guy's filling your head with nonsense." Marcus said quietly, "I haven't said much." Brandon's voice rose. "Because you don't have to. You just sit there and let her spiral." I felt something in me settle. It wasn't rage anymore. It was decision. I said, "Leave." Brandon's breathing got heavier. For a second, I thought he might shove the door. And I swear, that was the moment I realized how far this could go. Not because he was some monster in a movie, because he was my son, angry and entitled, and entitlement makes people reckless. He leaned in close to the crack. "If you go to that lawyer, you're gonna regret it." I held his gaze. "I already regret trusting you." That one hit him. I saw it, the flash of pain that looked almost human. Then it turned to anger again, because that's what Brandon does. He converts shame into aggression. He stepped back and pointed down at the envelope. "Read it, and don't call any more people. You're making this worse." Then he turned and walked away down the hallway like he'd done me a favor. The second he disappeared around the corner, I shut the door and locked it so fast my fingers fumbled. My knees felt weak like I'd just run a mile. Marcus exhaled. "Okay." My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely breathe. I hated that part. I hated that my body still reacted like Brandon had power over me. A softer knock came a minute later. Rosa's voice. "Denise, it's me. Open up." I opened the door fully this time, and Rosa marched in like she owned the place. She took one look at my face and her eyes went wide. "Did he touch you?" she demanded. "No," I said quickly. "No, he just did his thing." Rosa glanced at Marcus, then back to me. Good, because I would have had to ruin my whole week. That made a laugh tear out of me, half sob, half relief. Rosa can say one sentence and remind you you're still alive. Marcus pointed to the envelope. "That's the next receipt." I bent down and picked it up with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. I carried it to the table and set it down. Rosa hovered. "Open it." I hesitated, then tore it carefully along the top. Inside was a letter on plain white paper, but the top had a printed header with a law office name I didn't recognize. Not Harold Klein. Some other attorney. The first line made my stomach flip. R.E. Notice of intent to petition for emergency guardianship. Emergency. Guardianship. Those words don't belong in a mother's kitchen. I read further, and the letter was written in that icy legal tone that makes normal life sound like a case file. It said Brandon was concerned for my well-being, that I'd been unable to manage finances, that there was a risk of exploitation, and that he would be seeking temporary authority to manage my medical and financial decisions if I didn't cooperate. Cooperate. That word stood out like a bruise. Rosa snatched the paper from my hand and read it, her mouth dropping open. "Oh, he's out of his mind." Marcus leaned in, not touching, just reading. He's trying to get in front of Harold. I felt my vision narrow, so he hired another lawyer. Marcus nodded, or at least consulted. This isn't a random letter. Rosa slapped the paper down on the table. This is intimidation, plain and simple. I stared at the letter again, and suddenly I understood Brandon's new game. He wasn't just trying to control my money. He was trying to make me legally small. Rosa pointed at the bottom. "There's no court date here." "No," Marcus said. "It's a threat, a warning shot." My phone buzzed again, and this time it wasn't Brandon. It was a group text. A family group text I hadn't heard from in months. My aunt in Tucson, a cousin in Mesa, a couple of people I only see at holidays. The message was from Tessa, Tessa, hey everyone. Just a heads up, Denise isn't doing well and she's being influenced by someone. Please don't give her money or encourage this. We're handling it. I stared at the screen and a hot wave of humiliation rolled over me. Because now it wasn't just my bank and my phone and my dignity. It was my reputation. They were pre-poisoning the well. Rosa leaned over my shoulder and read it. Her face turned red. Oh no, she didn't. Marcus said, "Screenshot." So I did. Another receipt. Another piece of proof that they weren't trying to help me quietly. They were trying to control the narrative. And then my phone buzzed again. Another message in that same thread. Brandon this time. "Brandon, we love you, Mom. Please stop. You're scaring people." Scaring people. I felt my jaw tighten. He's making me sound crazy. Rosa grabbed her own phone like she was ready to type a dissertation. "Let me respond." Marcus held up a hand. "Don't. Not yet. Anything you send gets used." Rosa glared, but she listened. Mostly. I sat down hard in my chair, letter in front of me, group text on my phone, and suddenly I realized something ugly. They weren't afraid of me. They were afraid of paper. Because once this goes official, they can't, Mom's dramatic, their way out of it. Marcus said gently, "Tomorrow morning we go to Harold. We bring everything." Rosa nodded like she was already packing a bag, and we get her a new phone plan. Under her name, today if we can. "It's late," I said. Rosa waved a hand. "Late doesn't matter. Emergency doesn't wait for business hours." I looked at Marcus. Can he really do that? Guardianship? Marcus didn't pretend to know everything. He can try. The lawyer will tell you what's real and what's bluff. I stared at the letter again. Emergency. Rosa leaned in, voice fierce. "Listen to me. You are not helpless. You're not lost. You're not wandering into traffic." I almost laughed at that, but my throat was too tight. Marcus added, "And you have receipts." Receipts, that word kept saving me. Because feelings can be dismissed, screenshots can't. I took a photo of the letter with my iPhone, front and back. I saved it in a folder labeled important, like I was building a case file in my own life. Then another mini twist hit, quietly, like a knife sliding in. My email pinged. Not on my phone, because I didn't trust it, but on Marcus's phone, because I'd asked him to check the inbox I barely used. I'd given him the address, and he'd signed in while I watched. He looked up, eyes narrowing. Denise. What? My stomach sank. He turned the screen toward me. It was an email from Chase. Subject: Your account access has been updated. I felt the room tilt. Rosa blinked. You got an email from the bank? On an old email address, I said, stunned. I didn't even remember that inbox. Marcus scrolled. The email was short and generic, the kind of corporate message that says a lot while saying nothing. It confirmed an access change had been made and advised contacting Chase if it wasn't authorized. My mouth went dry. That's from when? Marcus checked the timestamp. 4 days ago. 4 days ago. The same day my card got declined. So Brandon didn't just decide to punish me last minute. He planned it. Rosa slapped the table. Print that. Marcus nodded. Harold will want it. My head was spinning. How did Chase email me if I'm locked out? Marcus pointed to the email address. Because this one is tied to the account notifications, not your app login. Meaning Brandon hadn't changed everything. He'd missed a thread, a loose string. And now we had it. Rosa leaned closer, eyes sharp. This is good. This is proof. I sat there for a second, just breathing, feeling the weirdest thing settle in my chest. Hope. Not the soft kind. The hard kind. The kind that makes you dangerous. Anyway, we didn't sleep. Rosa insisted on staying. She dragged a chair into my living room like she was setting up a watch shift. Marcus didn't stay the night. He said it would look bad if Brandon tried to paint him as some man camping in my apartment. Fair point. But before he left, he wrote his number on a sticky note and put it on my fridge. If anything happens, call, he said. I looked at him. Even if it's 2 a.m.? He nodded. Especially if it's 2 a.m. After he left, Rosa and I sat at my kitchen table with the letter and my screenshots and my pension paperwork spread out like a crime scene. Rosa said, "We need a list, timeline, dates." So I started writing. March, the decline at the store, the bank call, the texts, the group message, the guardianship threat, the Chase email confirming access updates. Seeing it in ink did something to me. It turned chaos into a line. Rosa watched me write, then said quietly, "You know why they're doing this, right?" I didn't look up. Money. Rosa nodded. And control. But mostly money. I swallowed. How much could they even be taking? Rosa gave me a look like she already knew the answer would be ugly, enough to scare them. That night, around 1:30 a.m., my phone buzzed again. I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was Lily. A FaceTime call. My heart squeezed so hard it hurt. Rose's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, honey." I stared at the screen. Lily's little name, my sweet girl, calling me in the middle of the night. And then the hard thought hit me like ice. What if it isn't Lily? What if it's Brandon or Tessa using her iPad, testing if they can get me to answer? I declined the call. My hand shook after. Rosa reached over and squeezed my wrist. That was smart. I felt tears burn, but I blinked them back. It felt cruel. Rosa's voice was soft. "It's not cruel to protect yourself." 2 minutes later, a text came through from Tessa. "Tessa, why won't you answer Lily? She misses you. You're hurting her." There it was. Confirmation. It wasn't Lily calling me, it was them. I screenshot it so fast my thumb hurt. Rosa muttered, "Oh, she's a snake." I sat back in my chair, staring at the messages. My granddaughter was being used like a fishing lure. And that's when I made another decision, one that felt like swallowing glass. I wasn't going to contact Lily directly until Harold told me how to do it safely. Because I wasn't stepping into a trap just because it had a child's name on it. Morning came too fast. We drove to Harold Klein's office in my 2016 Camry, with Rosa in the passenger seat like a general and Marcus meeting us there in his truck. Phoenix traffic was already waking up, and I kept thinking how normal everyone looked. People drinking iced coffee, going to work, living their lives. Meanwhile, I was walking into a lawyer's office to fight my own son. Harold Klein was exactly what you'd expect. 60-ish, neat gray hair, calm eyes, that looked like they'd seen every kind of family mess and weren't impressed by theatrics. He shook my hand, then Rosa's, then Marcus's. His grip was firm but not showy. He said, "Denise, I'm sorry you're dealing with this." I sat down, and for the first time in days, I felt like an adult in the room again. Harold reviewed everything in silence. The pension letter, the guardianship threat, the Chase email, the screenshots, the group text. He didn't gasp, he didn't frown dramatically. He just took notes. After a long minute, he looked up at me and said, "You are not the first mother this happens to." That sentence made my chest ache. Not because it comforted me, because it told me how common betrayal is. Harold continued, "The letter your son brought is a pressure tactic. It is not a court order." Rosa exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since last night. Harold held up a finger. "However, a petition could be filed. We take it seriously." My stomach tightened. Can he really do it? Harold's voice stayed even. "He can try, but you have capacity. You are here. You are coherent. You have documentation. And you are seeking counsel. That matters." I nodded slowly, trying to absorb it. Harold tapped the screenshot of Brandon's text. "This is important. We will have to make decisions for you. That language is coercive." Then he tapped the group text from Tessa. "This is also important. They are attempting to isolate you socially and financially." My mouth went dry. So what do we do? Harold's eyes sharpened, and for the first time, I heard steel under his calm. "We regain your access. We secure your identity. And we create a record that you object to their control." Marcus asked, "What's first?" Harold slid a document across the table toward me. We start with a representation agreement and a retainer receipt. Receipt. There's that word again. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled out his wallet and a card, like he'd already decided this the moment he knocked on my door. Harold's assistant processed it, printed a receipt, and stapled it to the agreement. Harold said, "This receipt and agreement matter because it establishes you have counsel as of today. If they file anything claiming you're being exploited, we can demonstrate you sought legal help independently." I stared at the paper like it was armor. Then Harold leaned forward slightly. "Next, we send a demand letter to Brandon, not a phone call, not a text, a letter." My stomach turned. He's going to lose it. Harold's expression didn't change. "Let him." He said it like a fact, not a threat. Harold continued, "We instruct him to restore your banking access immediately, provide an accounting of all transactions, and cease any attempts to contact third parties about your competency." Rosa smiled like she'd just tasted revenge. Harold raised a hand. "Also, Denise, we need you to open a new bank account in your name only, today." I blinked. "Chase?" Harold shook his head. "Not Chase. Not if Brandon has established control there. A different institution. We'll set up direct deposit to the new account." My throat tightened. "Can I do that fast?" Harold nodded. "Yes. You'll need ID. Then we change where your pension goes. That removes his leverage." That was a mini twist that felt like sunlight. Because up until that moment, I thought the only way out was to get Chase to give me something back. Harold was saying, "You don't need permission to build a new door." Marcus looked at me. "We can do it today." Rosa nodded hard. "We are doing it today." Then Harold's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, then looked at me. "This may be relevant." He answered, listened for a few seconds. Then his eyes lifted toward mine. "Yes, I understand. Thank you." He ended the call and set the phone down slowly. My heart started pounding again. "What?" Harold folded his hands. "Brandon Calder contacted my office yesterday. He requested a consultation." The room went silent. Rosa hissed, "Of course he did." Harold continued. "He was informed we could not discuss any matter involving you once you retained us, but this indicates he is actively pursuing legal channels." I swallowed. "So he's really doing it." Harold's voice was firm. "He is trying. That does not mean he will succeed." I felt my stomach drop anyway, because trying was enough to keep me awake at night. Harold slid another paper toward me. "This is the draft demand letter. We will send it today via certified mail and email. I also want you to stop responding to texts except to preserve them. No arguments, no defending yourself, just documentation." I nodded, numb and determined at the same time. We left Harold's office with a folder full of paper that felt heavier than it should have. And as we walked out into the bright Phoenix sun, my phone buzzed again. A notification. A new email. Harold's assistant had already sent me a copy of the demand letter. Attached PDF. Official. Clean. Cold. I stared at it and realized something that made my mouth go dry. Brandon had tried to scare me with a letter. Now I had one that could scare him back. Marcus said, "You okay?" I nodded once, "Yeah." Then I looked out at my phone again, because another notification popped up right after. A calendar alert I didn't create. Court hearing, 9 a.m. My heart stuttered. Rosa leaned in. "What is that?" I opened it, hands shaking. The event details were blank except for one line in the notes. "Don't make this hard." I stared at it, and the blood drained from my face. Marcus's voice turned sharp. "That's not from you." "No," I whispered, "that's from him." Because Brandon still had a way into my digital life. Somewhere, somehow. And if he could put a threat onto my calendar, then he could be closer than I wanted to admit. I looked up at Marcus and Rosa, and my voice came out low and steady, like my body had decided fear was a luxury I couldn't afford. "He's not just filing paperwork," I said. "He's still inside the house." And that's where part 3 ends. because the next thing we had to figure out wasn't how to beat him in court. It was how to lock him out of my life before he locked me out of my name. We didn't go home after that calendar threat. Rosa took one look at my face in the parking lot and said, "Nope, we're fixing your phone first." Marcus nodded like he'd already planned the route. Carrier store is still open for another hour. I slid into my 2016 Camry and my hands were tight on the steering wheel, but my mind felt weirdly calm, like my fear had burned off and left this clean, sharp edge. Because if Brandon could drop a threat into my calendar, he wasn't just concerned. He was still reaching into places he didn't deserve to touch. Rosa said, "Where's your phone plan set up?" "Under Brandon," I muttered. Rosa made a sound like she swallowed a curse. "Of course." We pulled into a strip mall off Bell Road. Bright neon signs buzzing, like it was any normal night. Marcus parked 2 spots away and met us at the door, scanning the lot like he was expecting Brandon to appear behind a parked SUV. Inside, the kid behind the counter looked about 19, with a lanyard and a bored face. He asked, "How can I help y'all?" Rosa leaned on the counter like a mom who's done this before. "We need to move her number to an account in her name." The kid blinked. "If the number is on someone else's account, we need the account holder." My stomach dropped. "So I'm trapped." Marcus stepped forward, voice calm. "Can she open a new line under her name tonight?" The kid nodded. "Yeah, new number, new SIM." Rosa didn't hesitate. "Do it." I stared at her. "A new number?" Rosa's eyes were fierce. "Denise, that number belongs to him right now. You can't fight a man who holds your leash." That sentence stung because it was true. Cold thought, clean and brutal. If he owns your number, he owns your silence. So yeah, I bought a new phone line. I sat there while the kid activated it, and I watched my iPhone 12 go from my phone to a device that used to be mine. It felt like cutting off a limb. The kid handed me a receipt, paper, printed, time-stamped, and I folded it into my purse like it was a passport. Marcus said quietly, "Take a photo of it." I did. Another little proof that I took action on my own. Mini Twist hit the second we stepped outside. My old number lit up one last time on my screen, like a ghost, showing a missed call notification from Brandon, but it didn't ring. It just appeared. I stared at it, confused. Marcus's eyebrows went up. "That's forwarding." Rosa's mouth tightened. "He set it up so he could monitor you." My throat went dry. He could have been seeing everything. Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. "Maybe not everything, but enough." We got back into the cars, and I followed Marcus home, not to his place, to mine, because we needed my documents, my safe stuff, my folder. Rosa stayed glued to me like a bodyguard with lipstick. When we got inside my apartment, the first thing I did was shut off my Wi-Fi. I didn't know if that mattered. I just needed something to feel like a lock turning. Rosa said, "Now, passwords." We sat at my kitchen table like a little war room. I changed my email password, then the backup email. I updated 2-factor to the new number. I wrote the new password down on paper and put it in my folder because my brain was too full to trust itself. Marcus watched without grabbing the phone. That restraint still mattered to me. Then he asked, "What about the Apple ID?" I opened it, hands steady now, and checked devices again. No iPad. But there was something else I didn't recognize. A MacBook. My heart started pounding again. "I don't own a MacBook." Rosa leaned in, squinting. "What's it named?" I read it out loud, and my stomach turned. "Tessa's MacBook." Rosa's face went slack for a second, like her brain had to restart. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Okay, that's the access point." I stared at the screen until it blurred, so she's been inside my account. Rosa slammed her palm on the table. "She's been inside your life." I removed the device. I changed the password again immediately. I turned on every security setting I could find, like I was building a wall with toothpicks. Then I did one more thing, and I didn't even realize how smart it was until later. I took screenshots of the device list, showing Tessa's MacBook before I removed it. Receipt. Paper trail, but digital. The next morning, we met Marcus in the parking lot outside a different bank. Anything but Chase, because Harold said new account, new lane, new control. I won't name the bank because it's not the point, but I will tell you this. The act of signing my own name on an account that was only mine felt like breathing after being underwater. The banker smiled and said, "And who would you like to add as a joint owner?" I smiled right back and said, "No one." The woman didn't flinch. She just nodded and slid the paperwork over. Rosa squeezed my knee under the desk like she was proud of me. The banker printed out the opening documents and handed me a folder and a receipt. Again, I folded it into my purse like it was a weapon. Then we drove straight to a Chase branch. I hadn't stepped into a Chase since the grocery store decline. Just seeing that blue logo made my stomach tighten. Marcus stayed in the lobby, a few chairs away, not hovering. Rosa sat beside me like a court-appointed auntie. When the banker called my name, I walked up to the desk with my ID, my pension letter, and Harold's demand letter printed out, even though it hadn't been delivered yet. I said, "I need statements." The banker's smile froze a little. "Are you the primary account holder?" I kept my voice steady. "I'm on the account. My pension deposits go into it. I need account history." She clicked around on her screen, eyes scanning. "It looks like you have limited access, ma'am." I leaned forward. "I'm not asking for app access. I'm asking for statements." She hesitated, then said, "We can provide transaction history to account owners." I held my breath. "Am I an account owner?" She looked again, and I watched her face change. "You are listed, yes." Rosa's fingers gripped my forearm under the desk like she didn't trust this to be real. The banker said, "How far back?" I heard my own voice answer, calm as ice. 6 months. Mini twist, she didn't argue. She printed. A thick stack of paper came out of that printer, and each page felt heavier than the last. She stapled it together, slid it across the desk, and said, "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said yes. I'd like a printout showing the date and time my online access was changed. She blinked. "That's not something we usually." I pulled out Harold's demand letter and slid it halfway across the desk. "My attorney is involved." That did it. Her smile disappeared. She became professional in a different way. "Let me see what I can do," she said. She stood, walked to a back office, and came out 10 minutes later with a single page. Not pretty, not detailed, but it showed a record of an access change with a timestamp. The same morning my card declined. I took it and held it like it was a smoking gun. Marcus saw my face when we regrouped near the exit. "You got it?" I nodded, and my throat tightened. "We got it." We went to my apartment, spread the papers on my kitchen table, and started reading. And that's where the world tilted. Because it wasn't just my $1,200 a month going in. It was what was going out. $480 at a department store I never shop at. $1,300 at a jewelry place. $899 at an electronics store. $2,200 at a resort. I kept flipping pages like my hands belonged to someone else. Rosa's mouth fell open. "Denise." Marcus's eyes were hard, scanning line by line like he was looking for patterns. Then he stopped. "Here," he said. He pointed to a line item that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. A payment to a law office, the same name from Brandon's intimidation letter. "Retainer payment. Paid from my account." I stared at it until my eyes burned. So he didn't just threaten me with guardianship. He used my money to fund the threat. Rosa whispered, "Oh my God." Marcus didn't whisper. "Take a picture, now." I snapped photos of the statement page, the transaction line, the date, the amount. I zoomed in and made sure the account number was partially visible, enough to connect it, not enough to be stupid. Then I flipped again and found something else. Zelle transfers. Small at first, $250, $300. Then bigger, $1,000. And the recipient name wasn't Brandon. It was Tessa. Rosa made this sound like a laugh, and a sob had a baby. So she's getting paid too. Marcus's voice went low. That's your weapon. I stared at the name on the page, Tessa, like it was printed in poison ink. All those times she stood in the doorway with that polite smile. All those times she said, "Not a good time." Meanwhile, she was taking my money like it was her allowance. My body went hot, then cold. I sat back and tried to breathe, because the moment you see it in black and white, there's no maybe, no misunderstanding, no he didn't mean it. This was a pipeline. My money in, their lifestyle out. Mini twist, my phone buzzed, my new number, and the screen showed an unknown call. Rosa stiffened. Don't answer. Marcus watched me. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. They didn't. 2 seconds after the missed call, a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. Nice try. We know what you're doing. My skin prickled. How does he have this number? Marcus's jaw tightened. He doesn't, not unless someone gave it to him. Rosa froze, then slowly looked at me. Did you text anyone else from it? I thought fast. The only person I'd texted was Rosa and Marcus. Then it hit me like a slap. The carrier store. The account representative had asked for my name, my old number, my ID, everything. If Brandon has connections, if he's been watching, if he's got access to my old phone plan, he could have gotten notified the moment my number changed or my old line got replaced. Or worse, he could have been tracking the device and saw me in that store. I felt my throat close. He's faster than us. Marcus didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. Good. Let him rush. Rosa grabbed my hand. Send it to Harold. So I did. Screenshot, new threat, another receipt. Then I sent Harold the photos of the Chase statements, the Zelle to Tessa, the law office retainer, the resort charges. Harold replied within 10 minutes. One line. Do not engage. Bring these immediately. We drove to Harold's office like we were carrying a live bomb. In the lobby, Harold's assistant took one look at our faces and hustled us back without the usual polite waiting room nonsense. Harold sat us down, looked at the statement page with the law office payment, and his calm finally cracked just a little. He said, "This is significant." Rosa leaned forward. Is it illegal? Harold's eyes lifted. It's at minimum persuasive evidence of misuse, possibly more depending on account structure and authorizations. I stared at him. He paid his lawyer with my money. Harold nodded once. It also undermines his claim that he's protecting you. Marcus said, and the Zelle transfers to Tessa. Harold's jaw tightened, also significant. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a yellow legal pad, then started writing like he was building a ladder out of ink. Timeline, deposits, withdrawals, transfers, communications. He looked at me. Denise, did you authorize any of these? I shook my head so hard my earrings clinked. No. Harold pointed at the retainer payment. This one especially matters because it shows he is using your funds to initiate action against you. Then he slid a paper toward me, something new. Declaration, he said. You'll sign this stating you do not consent to Brandon controlling your finances, you do not consent to guardianship, and you are of sound mind and acting voluntarily. Rosa's voice shook with anger. This is insane. Harold's voice stayed calm. It's unfortunately not rare. Mini twist, Harold's assistant walked in and quietly handed him a document folder. He opened it, scanned it, then looked up at me. They filed, he said. My stomach dropped. Filed what? Harold's face was all business now. A petition for temporary guardianship. There's a hearing request. My ears started ringing. When? Harold checked the top page. They're asking for an expedited hearing. Rosa's hands balled into fists. How fast? Harold looked at me steady. As soon as the court can schedule it. I thought about that fake calendar event Brandon planted. Court hearing, 9 a.m. My voice went small. He wasn't bluffing. Harold's eyes narrowed. That calendar entry you mentioned, did you screenshot it? I nodded, and my hand shook as I pulled it up on my phone. I handed it over. Harold stared at it. Good. That supports harassment and intimidation. Then he turned a page in the newly delivered folder and slid it toward me. And there it was. Brandon's signature, Tessa's name, pages of accusations. I was confused, unable to manage money, vulnerable to exploitation, isolated. They even mentioned Marcus, called him an unknown male influence. I wanted to throw up. Rosa read over my shoulder and made a choking sound. They're acting like you're wandering around downtown screaming at pigeons. Harold said quietly, they're building a narrative. I swallowed hard. How do we beat it? Harold leaned forward and tapped the page where the retainer payment was listed on my statement photo. With facts, he said. And with this, he pointed to the Zelle transfers. And this, he pointed to the screenshot of Brandon's text. We will have to make decisions for you. And this, Harold looked me straight in the eyes. We will also have you evaluated by a professional for a capacity assessment, voluntarily. It cuts their legs out from under them. The word evaluated made me bristle, but I understood the strategy. It wasn't about proving I'm perfect. It was about proving I'm not what they're claiming. Marcus said, what about the money trail? Can we get more than 6 months? Harold nodded. Yes, we'll request additional records. Rosa asked, can we stop them from touching her Chase account right now? Harold's answer was careful. We can attempt emergency relief, and we can notify the bank's legal department. He paused, then added, but the fastest lever is redirecting your pension deposits to your new account. I nodded. We already opened it. Harold's mouth tightened in approval. Good. That reduces ongoing harm. Mini twist. Harold's assistant returned with a certified mail receipt. Harold held it up. Our demand letter was delivered, signed for. Delivered. Meaning Brandon had it in his hands now. Harold looked at me. Expect retaliation. My pulse thudded. What kind? Harold's voice stayed steady. More threats, social pressure, possibly a wellness check, possibly attempts to show you as unstable. Rosa muttered, let them try. Harold slid one more paper toward me. Also, Denise, we need to document any contact with Lily. Do not respond to messages using Lily as leverage. My throat tightened. I hate that she's in the middle. Harold's eyes softened a fraction. So do I. But you protect her by protecting yourself. We left Harold's office with a copy of the petition, our new enemy in ink, and a plan that felt both solid and terrifying. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text. This one was longer. You can do this easy or hard. Easy is, you come to our house, we talk, you sign what needs to be signed, and we move forward as a family. Hard is court, your choice. No name, but I knew it was Tessa. That smooth, corporate, as a family language. Rosa read it and whispered, she's disgusting. Marcus said, screenshot. I did. Another receipt. Then my phone buzzed immediately after, like someone was watching the typing bubble in real time. Another message. Same number. And if you keep letting that man near you, you're going to lose Lily. That one made my vision go narrow. Rosa gasped, oh my God. Marcus's voice turned cold. That's coercion. I stared at the screen until my hand stopped shaking, which took longer than I wanted to admit. We drove back to my apartment, and Rosa insisted we stop at a clinic Harold recommended for the capacity assessment scheduling. I hated every second of it, just the idea of needing a paper that says, I'm not crazy. But the woman at the front desk was kind, and she didn't look at me like I was broken. She looked at me like I was someone who'd been put through something ugly. She gave me an appointment card. Receipt. Another date, another document, another piece of proof that I was taking control voluntarily. When we got home, the retaliation started fast. There was a police officer in my hallway. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might faint. He wasn't aggressive, he wasn't rude. He was just standing there, clipboard in hand, like he'd been sent to check a box. Ma'am, he said, polite. "We got a call requesting a welfare check." Rosa stepped forward before I could speak. "She's fine." The officer looked at me. "Can you tell me your name and today's date?" I did, clearly, calmly. I even told him the month without having to think about it, which felt like a weird flex. He nodded, eyes scanning my face. "Do you feel safe in your home?" I looked at him and said, "Not when my son uses you as a weapon." The officer's expression flickered, like he'd heard that sentence before in 100 different versions. He said, "Do you want to file anything today?" I hesitated. Rosa whispered, "Yes." Marcus, who'd stayed a few steps back, said quietly, "Ask Harold first." I looked at the officer and chose my words. Not today, but I wanted documented that this was requested by family. The officer nodded. "We can note that." He wrote something down, then asked, "Is there someone you'd like us to contact?" I almost laughed. The only someone who should be contacted is the person causing the problem. But I kept it polite. "No, officer, I'm okay." He handed me a card with the case number for the welfare check. Receipt. As soon as he walked away, my phone buzzed again. Brandon this time. My old number now blocked, but the message still popped in through a thread I hadn't fully severed yet because the device remembered. He wrote, "See, this is what happens when you don't listen." I stared at it and my blood turned to ice. Rosa snatched my phone and read it, her mouth falling open. "He did that. He called them." Marcus's jaw flexed. "Screenshot it." I took one more screenshot. Then I did something that surprised even me. I typed one line back, not angry, not pleading, not emotional. "Direct all communication to my attorney." And then I blocked him. My fingers shook when I did it, because blocking your child feels like cutting your own hand off. But the relief that followed was real. Mini twist, the doorbell rang. Not a knock, not the hallway, my actual doorbell. Rosa froze. Marcus moved slightly, positioning himself where he could see the peephole angle without making it look like he was guarding me. I looked through the peephole. Tessa. And she wasn't alone. Lily stood beside her, small, holding a backpack like she'd been told she might be staying somewhere. My chest cracked right down the middle. Rosa whispered, "No." Marcus's voice was low. "Don't open it." I couldn't breathe for a second. Because my granddaughter's face was right there, and she looked confused, not scared, just confused, like she'd been dragged into adult nonsense and didn't understand the rules. Tessa leaned down and said something to Lily. Then Lily waved at the door like she could see through it. "Grandma," Lily called, sweet and bright. My eyes burned. Rosa grabbed my wrist. "Denise, don't. This is a setup." I pressed my palm against the door, right where Lily's voice was coming from. I wanted to yank it open and scoop her up. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to promise her I wasn't going anywhere. But then I pictured Tessa's MacBook listed under my Apple ID. I pictured the Zelle transfers. I pictured the petition calling me incompetent. They didn't bring Lily because she missed me. They brought Lily because she was leveraged with pigtails. I leaned toward the door and spoke through it, voice trembling but firm. "Hi, baby. Grandma loves you." Lily said, "Why aren't you opening?" Tessa's voice slid in, syrupy. "Denise, we just want to talk. Lily wanted to see you." Rosa mouthed, "No." Marcus said quietly, "This is what Harold warned you about." I closed my eyes for half a second, then opened them and said through the door, "Tessa, leave my doorstep. Any communication goes through Harold Klein." Tessa's sweetness vanished like a light switch. "So you're choosing the hard way." I didn't answer. Lily's little voice came again, smaller now. "Grandma?" My throat closed. I pressed my forehead to the door. Then Tessa said something that made my body go cold. "Tell her, Lily. Tell her what you heard Daddy say." My eyes snapped open. Lily sniffed, and her voice got shaky like she'd been coached. Daddy said you're sick, and you don't know what's real." My stomach turned. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, angry ones. Tessa said, loud enough for me to hear, "See? This is why we need to step in. I started shaking, not because I believed them, because they were putting words in Lily's mouth. I stepped back from the door and grabbed my phone, my new number, and called Harold's office voicemail line after hours because he'd given me an emergency extension. I left a message, voice shaking. They showed up with Lily on my doorstep. I didn't open. They're coaching her. Then I did one more thing. I turned on the voice memo recorder and held the phone near the door, capturing Tessa's voice as she kept talking, claiming I was unstable, saying they were forced to seek court action, using Lily like a prop. I wasn't sure it would be admissible or perfect, but it was real. Tessa knocked again, harder. "Denise, open the door." Rosa whispered, "Call the police back." Marcus shook his head slightly. "Not unless she tries to force entry. Keep it clean." I hated that this had become a tactical decision, but he was right. Brandon and Tessa wanted a scene. They wanted me yelling so they could say, "See, she's unstable." So I stayed quiet. After a few minutes, the voices outside shifted. I heard Lily whining, then the scrape of shoes. Tessa hissed something under her breath, angry, sharp. Then silence. I checked the peephole. They were gone. My legs almost gave out. Rosa wrapped her arms around me, and for a second I let myself lean into it, because I didn't have enough strength to be proud. Marcus exhaled slowly. "You did the hardest thing." I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I feel like I failed her. Rosa pulled back and looked me dead in the eyes. "No, you protected her from becoming their evidence." My phone buzzed. Email from Harold's office. Subject line, "Urgent, hearing scheduled." My stomach dropped again. I opened it with trembling fingers. Harold wrote, "Court-scheduled hearing for temporary guardianship request. Date/time attached. We will respond immediately. Do not be alone." Attached was a notice. Official. Stamped. A real hearing date. And the time? 9 a.m. The same time Brandon had planted in my calendar with, "Don't make this hard." I stared at it until my vision tunneled. Marcus leaned in. "It's real," Rosa whispered. "Oh my God." And right as that sank in, my phone buzzed again. Another message from that unknown number, Tessa's. "See you in court. Wear something nice." I didn't respond. I just took the screenshot and saved it into the folder with everything else, because by this point, my pain had turned into a filing system. Then I looked up at Marcus and Rosa and said, the only true thing left in my chest. Tomorrow morning, my son is going to try to steal my rights in a courtroom. And the promise part, the part I'm making to you right now, is this. They picked the wrong woman to corner once the paper trail is in my hands. I was up before my alarm, sitting at my kitchen table in the dark, like the table might start talking if I stared long enough. Rosa made coffee without asking, like this was just another Tuesday, and not the day my son planned to walk into a courtroom and tell a stranger I couldn't be trusted with my own life. My iPhone sat face down because I couldn't stand seeing it light up. Marcus texted from his truck. "Outside in 10, you ready?" Ready is a funny word, like you can be ready to watch your family try to erase you. I walked into my bedroom and stared at my closet like it was a moral dilemma. Tessa's message, "Wear something nice," kept replaying in my head, and it made me want to show up in sweatpants out of spite. But Harold had said something the day before that stuck with me. Courts listen with their eyes first. So I put on dark slacks, a simple blouse, and a cardigan that made me look like someone who pays bills on time. I brushed my hair back, put on lipstick, and I looked in the mirror and said, out loud, "I'm not asking permission to exist." Rosa stood in the doorway and nodded like that was exactly what she needed to hear. Mini Twist hit as we were leaving. There was a yellow, sticky note on my door frame. Not inside, outside. I froze. Rosa leaned in close, squinting. "What is that?" It was handwriting I recognized instantly. Brandon's blocky, confident strokes. "Last chance. Don't embarrass yourself." My hands started shaking, but the emotion that rose up wasn't fear. It was disgust. Cold thought, clean as a blade. He loves control more than he loves me. Rosa ripped the note off the frame like she was yanking a weed. "Oh, we're keeping this." She took a photo of it on her phone, then tucked the actual note into a zip-top bag she pulled out of her purse, like she'd been waiting for a moment like this her whole life. "Receipt," she said. Marcus pulled up in his truck as we walked out. He didn't honk. He just got out, opened the passenger door for me, and gave me a look like, "We're doing this." We drove downtown in a quiet convoy, Marcus in front, me behind, Rosa beside me, Phoenix sunrise creeping over the buildings like it had no idea what kind of day it was. My stomach rolled the whole way. Then another twist. Harold called. I answered on speaker because at that point secrecy felt pointless. "Denise," he said, calm and crisp, "I need you to do one thing before you walk in." "What?" "Do not speak to Brandon or Tessa in the hallway. If they approach, you look at me. Understood?" I swallowed. "Understood." "And bring your folder," he added, "not just copies, originals." Rosa patted the thick folder on her lap like it was a baby. Harold continued, "We also have your voluntary capacity assessment scheduled. That matters today." My throat tightened. "I hate that." "I know," Harold said, "but it closes a door they're trying to walk through." He hung up, and the silence in the car felt heavy. Rosa broke it. "He's scared." "Who?" I asked, though I knew. "Brandon," she said. "People don't threaten you when they're confident. They threaten you when the ground is moving." We parked, walked up those courthouse steps, and I swear the air changed. Everything felt colder inside, even with Arizona's sun blazing outside. Harold met us near the elevators, suit on, expression steady. He looked at my outfit, gave one small nod like, "Good choice." Then he looked at Marcus. "Thank you for being here." Marcus nodded back. "She's not alone." That sentence hit me in the ribs. We rode up in the elevator with strangers who looked like they were there for traffic tickets and divorces and everything in between. Nobody looked like they were there to watch a son try to cage his mother. The hallway outside the courtroom was already crowded. Quiet voices, papers, nervous energy. I felt like I was walking into an exam I didn't study for. And then I saw them. Brandon in a pressed shirt, jaw set, pretending calm. Tessa beside him, hair perfect, face soft in that fake sympathetic way, like she was already practicing her "we're just worried" smile. And yes, Lily was there. My heart cracked in half. She was holding Tessa's hand, eyes wide, dressed in a little cardigan like they'd styled her for court. I stopped walking. Rosa's hand slid into mine, tight. Harold stepped slightly in front of me, not blocking me like I was fragile, just creating space. Brandon looked up, saw me, and his expression flickered. Not guilt. Annoyance. Like I'd shown up when I wasn't supposed to. Tessa tilted her head and smiled like she was greeting a neighbor. "Denise." Harold's voice was calm. "Ma'am, any communication goes through counsel." Tessa's smile tightened. "We're family." Harold didn't blink. Not in this hallway. Brandon's eyes cut to Marcus, and for the first time I saw real anger flash. "You," Brandon said, low. Marcus didn't take the bait. He just stood there. Brandon looked back at me and said, soft enough to sound caring if you didn't know him, "Mom, you don't have to do this." I felt my throat tighten. Then I remembered the grocery store, the decline, the way he wanted me begging. I looked him in the eyes and said the simplest truth I had, "You started this." His face hardened immediately. Tessa leaned down to Lily, whispered something, then Lily looked up and waved at me like she was searching for a normal moment. I waved back, small, because Lily didn't choose this. Brandon's attorney showed up, a man with a briefcase and a tired face. He nodded at Harold like this was just another morning. I heard the bailiff call our case, and my legs went light. Harold touched my elbow gently. "Stay close." We walked into the courtroom, and it felt like stepping onto a stage where everybody else had a script. The judge sat up high, glasses low on his nose, reading papers with that expression that says, "I've heard everything, and I'm not impressed easily." Harold guided me to the table, Rosa sat behind us. Marcus sat a few seats back, quiet as a shadow. Brandon and Tessa sat on the other side. Lily sat with them, swinging her feet because she was a child in a room built for adult ugliness. Mini twist. The judge looked straight at Lily and frowned. "Why is a minor child present?" he asked. Tessa's attorney stood. "Your Honor, the child is here because she is close to the respondent and—" The judge cut him off. "This is a guardianship hearing, not a family therapy session. I don't need a child used as a prop." My heart thudded. Tessa's face flushed. Brandon stared down at the table like he'd been scolded in school. The judge told them to have Lily wait outside with a court staffer. Tessa tried to argue, then stopped when the judge's expression didn't budge. Lily glanced at me as she was let out, confused. I mouthed, "I love you," and she nodded like she understood, even though she couldn't. Then the judge looked at Brandon's petition and started asking questions. "Mr. Calder," he said, "you're seeking temporary guardianship over your mother's finances and medical decisions, correct?" Brandon stood, shoulders squared. "Yes, Your Honor." "And your basis is that she is unable to manage her affairs and is vulnerable to exploitation?" Brandon nodded. "Yes. She's been acting irrationally, she's isolating, she's being influenced." The judge glanced at me. "Ma'am, do you understand why we're here?" I stood. My voice shook at first, then steadied. "Yes, my son locked me out of my Chase account, my pension account, and he wants the court to give him legal control because I objected." The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You object?" "Yes," I said. "I object to him controlling my money and my choices." Brandon's attorney jumped in, smooth. "Your Honor, the petitioner has acted out of concern. There were suspected scams. There were concerns about her capacity and safety." Harold stood, calm as a surgeon. "Your Honor, we have documentation showing Mr. Calder modified her bank access without her consent on the day her card was declined at a grocery store. We also have evidence of coercive texts, attempts to isolate her from family, and the use of her funds to pay legal retainers against her." The judge leaned forward. "You have evidence?" Harold placed a folder on the table. "Yes, and we request permission to submit exhibits." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Harold handed over the first exhibit, the Chase Access Change printout with the timestamp. Then the screenshots, Brandon's text about making decisions for me. Tessa's group message, telling family not to help me. Tessa's threat about Lily. The police welfare check card. The sticky note. I watched Brandon's face tighten as each piece landed. Mini twist. The judge asked Brandon, "Did you change her account access?" Brandon hesitated. Your Honor, I secured it. For her protection." "For her protection," the judge repeated, dry. Then, Harold slid forward the Chase statement pages, Zelle transfers to Tessa, resort charges, jewelry, electronics, and the law office retainer paid from my account. The judge's eyes dropped to the page and stayed there longer than a glance. "Mr. Calder," he said, voice sharper now, "is this payment to counsel from your mother's account accurate?" Brandon's attorney spoke quickly. "Your Honor, the account is joint." The judge held up a hand. "I did not ask about account structure. I asked if the payment came from her funds." Brandon swallowed. "Yes." "And these transfers to your wife," the judge continued, tapping the page, "did those come from your mother's funds?" Brandon's face reddened. "It's complicated." The judge looked unimpressed. "It's not complicated. It's either authorized or not." Harold stood again. "Your Honor, Ms. Calder did not authorize those transfers. She also has opened a new account in her name and is redirecting her pension deposits away from the Chase account to prevent further harm." The judge turned to me. "Is that correct, ma'am?" "Yes," I said. "And you did that voluntarily?" "Yes." The judge nodded slowly, then looked back at Brandon. "So your mother, who you claim cannot manage her affairs, has taken steps to secure counsel, open a new bank account, and preserve evidence of coercion." Brandon's jaw clenched. "She was helped." Harold's voice was calm. Your Honor, seeking help is not incapacity. It's responsibility. That line hit me like a warm blanket and a knife at the same time. Then the judge asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Calder, he said, why did you not simply restore access to your mother's account when she requested it? Brandon's eyes flicked toward me, then toward his attorney, then back to the judge. Because she's stubborn. She won't listen. The judge cut him off. That's not an answer. Brandon's voice rose, just a little, because she was being manipulated by that man. The judge's eyebrows lifted. Which man? Brandon pointed, blatant, toward Marcus. Marcus didn't move. The judge looked at Marcus, then back at Brandon. Do you have evidence of exploitation by this individual? Brandon's mouth opened, then closed. No, he admitted. Mini twist. The judge leaned back and sighed like a man who'd just had his time wasted. I'm denying the petition for temporary guardianship, he said, voice firm. There is insufficient evidence of incapacity, and there is concerning evidence of financial control and coercion by the petitioner. My ears rang. I felt my body go light, like the room shifted, but I stayed in place. Rose's hand pressed into my back from behind, like she was holding me upright. Brandon's face went white. Tessa's mouth tightened so hard it almost disappeared. The judge continued, and it got better, if you can call this kind of justice better. Additionally, the judge said, I am ordering an accounting of transactions from the Chase account in question for the relevant period, and I recommend the bank's fraud and legal departments be notified. Brandon's attorney started to object, and the judge shut it down with one look. Then he looked at Brandon, voice colder. Mr. Calder, if you continue to interfere with your mother's access or attempt further intimidation, you may expose yourself to more serious consequences. He didn't say it exactly like that, but that was the feeling, and I held on to it. Harold thanked the court, professional and calm. I could tell he was restraining a smile, because attorneys don't celebrate in courtrooms, not out loud. The judge looked at me. Miss Calder, do you feel safe? I hesitated, then said, I feel safer today than I did last week. The judge nodded, then said, continue with your new banking arrangements. Follow your attorney's advice, and do not be pressured into signing anything you do not understand. I wanted to laugh, I wanted to sob, I wanted to collapse. Instead, I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. It was over. Just like that, the thing Brandon tried to build collapsed in front of strangers. We stepped into the hallway, and the first thing I saw was Lily running toward me before the staffer could stop her. Grandma, she cried, and she threw her arms around my waist. My heart broke open. I held her gently, careful, because I didn't want to make a scene, but also because I needed that hug like oxygen. Tessa rushed up, face tight. Lily, come here. Lily didn't move. She clung harder. Mini twist. Brandon stepped forward and grabbed Lily's shoulder, not rough, but controlling. That's enough, he said to Lily like she was a dog. My blood turned cold. I looked up at Brandon and said, quiet and deadly, don't touch her like that. His eyes flashed. Mom! Harold stepped in smoothly. Mr. Calder, do not engage. You were instructed by the court. Brandon's face tightened, and he backed off half a step, but his eyes were burning. Tessa tried to smile like she could still play sweet. Denise, we can still handle this privately. I looked at her and felt something settle inside me. Not anger, finality. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. I just said no. One syllable. Tessa's smile vanished. Brandon leaned close, voice low enough to be a threat. You think you won? I looked him in the eyes. I think you got caught. His face twitched, like he wanted to explode. Then, another twist. Harold's assistant appeared at the end of the hallway with a sealed envelope. Harold took it, opened it, scanned it, and his mouth tightened. What? I asked, heartbeat spiking again. He held up a page. The court clerk has already stamped the denial and the accounting order. We can send this to Chase today. Stamped. Official. Immediate. Receipt. paper that outranked Brandon's mouth. We walked away, and I didn't look back, not once, because I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me check if they were following. Outside, Phoenix sun hit my face, and I realized I'd been holding my breath for days. Rosa hugged me so hard my ribs complained. Marcus stood to the side, giving me space, but his eyes were soft. I walked over to him and said, "Thank you." He shook his head. "You did it." "No," I said. "I survived it. There's a difference." He nodded slowly, like he understood. Then I did the next hard thing. I knelt down to Lily's eye level. "Baby, I need you to listen to Grandma." Lily's eyes were wide, still glossy. I said, "You're not in trouble. None of this is your fault, but if Mom or Dad says grown-up things about Grandma being sick or confused, you tell your teacher or you tell Rosa, okay?" Rosa nodded, tears in her eyes. Lily whispered, "Are you mad at Daddy?" My throat tightened. I chose my words like I was stepping through glass. "I'm mad at choices," I said, "not at you." Lily nodded, then hugged me again. Tessa called from a distance, sharp now. "Lily, now." Lily pulled back and looked at me like she didn't want to go. That hurt more than any legal letter. I kissed her forehead. "I love you, always." She ran back to them, and I watched her go with my heart in my throat. That part didn't feel like victory. It felt like the price. Over the next week, the cold satisfaction came in pieces, like little packages delivered to my doorstep. Harold sent the court order to Chase's legal department. Chase responded, not with warmth, because banks don't do warmth, but with action. They restored my access and generated official statements going back further, not just 6 months, more. And when those pages came, the full picture was uglier than I even expected. But the best part? It wasn't my feelings on paper. It was their pattern. Repeated Zelle transfers to Tessa, purchases that matched their social media, living our best life posts, the law office retainer, another payment labeled consultation, little charges that look like daily life, and big ones that look like a weekend getaway funded by my pension. Harold built it into a clean timeline, and he did it with the calm of a man assembling a puzzle he'd seen too many times. Mini twist, the other law office, the one Brandon used, sent a letter trying to spin it. It said Brandon was acting in good faith and seeking to protect his mother. Harold read it, then looked up at me and said, "Good faith doesn't Zelle your wife." That made Rosa laugh so hard she snorted, which I needed. Then the next twist, Tessa's family group text started unraveling. Because once people saw the court denial, yes, someone leaked it, and no, it wasn't me, suddenly the tone changed. A cousin texted me privately, "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry, we didn't know." My aunt in Tucson called and said, "I should have asked you first." I didn't scream at them. I didn't punish them. I just told them the truth. "I was locked out," I said, "and they tried to make me look unstable so nobody would help." Silence on the line, then shame. It wasn't my favorite feeling, being pitied, but it was better than being erased. And Brandon? Brandon went quiet. Not because he'd grown conscience. Because Harold was now sending everything in writing, and Brandon couldn't out-talk paperwork. One afternoon, I got an email from Chase confirming my pension direct deposit had been rerouted to my new account. I stared at that confirmation like it was a sunrise. Receipt. Final lever removed. A few days later, Lily called me from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, stomach twisting. Then Rosa said, "Answer. Put it on speaker." I did. "Grandma?" Lily's voice was small. My throat tightened. "Hi, baby." She whispered, like she was hiding. "Mom said I can't talk to you, but I miss you." My eyes burned. I kept my voice gentle. "I miss you too, so much." Lily asked, "Are you sick?" I swallowed. "No, sweetheart. Grandma's not sick. Grandma's just dealing with grown-up stuff." Lily was quiet, then said, "Daddy was mad." I closed my eyes. Okay, I said softly. If Daddy is mad, that's not your job to fix. She sniffed. Can I see you? My chest ached. I chose the safest truth. Soon. I'm working on it, but you can always write me a note, okay? Okay, Lily whispered. I love you. I love you more, I said, and I meant it so hard it hurt. The call ended, and Rosa wiped her eyes with the hem of her shirt like she was angry at her own tears. Marcus texted later, "You good?" I typed back, "I'm standing." Because that's what it was. Standing. Not dancing, not celebrating. Standing. Harold eventually negotiated a formal agreement. Brandon would have zero access to my finances, no shared accounts, no phone plan, no digital access, nothing. If he violated it, there were consequences, real ones. I signed it with a pen that didn't shake. Brandon never apologized, not the way a real apology sounds. Tessa sent one text, through her attorney, saying she regretted how things unfolded. That made me laugh, bitter. Regretted how things unfolded like it was weather. Point is, I got my life back on paper. And I got something else too. A new habit. Every time someone tells you it's for your own good, you ask, show me in writing. Because love doesn't hide. Control hides. So yeah, that's where it landed. A grocery store decline turned into a courthouse hearing, and my son learned the hard way that you can't build a cage out of my pension and call it help. And if you love karma stories, if you love watching the truth win when the receipts finally come out, stick around, because I've got plenty more where that came from.